You obviously took a cameo in Saltburn, and there are a lot of characters. Would you like to walk along the moors if the opportunity
I
arose?
always love to walk along the moors. I'm not walking along the moors in this one, but I hope to be on every set she ever has again.
I mean, I'd like to walk along the moors in Emerald's film. Just if Emerald's watching Den of Geek. Has she shot it?
I think she's doing it right now.
Right, yeah. I probably won't be walking along the moors either.
Background.
I mean,
Look,
Background,
we can
yeah.
make our own moors
Yeah,
walking
walking on the
films.
we can all walk along the moors. I don't have 300,000 pounds. but
Yeah,
we could-
that's true. We'll walk along the moors independently of Emerald. Fantastic.
This is David Crow with Den of Geek, and I'm here with director James Griffiths, stars and writers Tom Basden and Tim Key, as well as Carey Mulligan. And we're here to talk about the Ballad of Wallis Island. This ballad actually began as a short film in 2007, and for three of the people here. And I was curious for y'all, did y'all know back then that it had the potential to be a feature film?
Well, I guess we hoped it did. I mean, what's probably quite telling is the script was about 10 or 12 pages long, and then the short itself was about 25 minutes. So I think we felt like
It was almost there.
we backed ourselves to
Fill in the rest of the time.
to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, just read those lines 3 times. We got a feature. I think we all loved doing it, and I feel like there was I would say like 10 years later, because this was 17 years ago. 10 years later, it was already something we'd reminisce about it and be very nostalgic. That it was like our favourite thing we'd done, and also in sort of interviews, what would you like to do? You sort of think it'd be amazing if we could make that into a feature. So it's sort of on our minds, but it did take us this long. I don't know why it did.
Well, do you think that it is a story about nostalgia a little bit? So do you think having a little more time and perspective improved it?
I think that probably did help. You were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, I think that we sort of all got to a place in our lives where the current iteration of the film, beyond the short, what it is now, is kind of reflective of our own journeys to get to that place, I guess. So if we hadn't have had that time in between, I think it'd be a very different film. But certainly the themes are more relatable to me now.
Yeah, that's definitely right. I think in the short, you know, we were all very young, really, and it just doesn't have the same kind of emotional kind of resonance and sadness that the feature does, and that sense of like having lived a bit and, you know, having things to regret, having things to kind of reflect upon. You don't really have that when you're in your early 20s.
Carey, when did you see the short?
When did I see the short? Well, when they sent me the script for the feature, because I hadn't seen it up until that point. But I don't know why I feel bad about that. It was a short film. There are lots
But it
of short
wasn't. It's
films.
not a world famous short film.
I immediately started being like, oh God,
Right,
I feel so guilty.
Okay.
Just stop me looking at me like I'm...
Wow.
Anyway,
heard of the internet.
I can tell the truth.
Yeah, I'd seen
the
your
truth is, I didn't know about it.
Or care.
Completely went off my radar.
But then when you got it, it's like a proof
I was
of
blown
concept.
away.
Thank you.
Obviously.
Right. Decent save.
Now I'm hot. I'm wearing suede.
Yeah. You were wearing suede before the question.
So they sent me the script and the short, and so I read the feature script at the same time as seeing the short. But I knew about them as a duo because I was a big fan of the late night poetry hour. It was not, and we had already been in contact about other things pertaining to charity commitments that Tim was not interested in
I always love
participating
to help out with charity.
So he just sent me the script, basically, because we had each other's email. And when he sent me the script, I read it, and he also said, you should look at the short, because that's what the script is based on. And I loved the short so much.
Well, I could try to describe this very charming movie, but I feel like Tom and Tim, y'all might be able to do it a little.
I would love to hear your description, though.
With that said,
Go on.
okay, turnabout. I think it's a cozy movie, like wearing a comfy sweater by the fire, because that is where your character, who is a rock star or a folk star, ends up on Wallis Island because he is invited there by a fan, and only one fan, who is certainly an eccentric personality. How fair is that? Good.
I think that's really good.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the detail of the warm fire as well.
I
That's
like the
very
warm sweater. I like to call the film like a warm hug. Yeah.
But it's better than a warm hug.
Not much better. Don't know what kind of hugs you're
It's
getting.
funnier than a
Who are you
warm
hugging?
hug.
Cozy but ephemeral. Well,
Don't just tell them it's a hug.
well, to put a little more context into it, Tim, you play Charles, who is this wonderful creation. He is a fan of the folk act at the center of the story. And what's important for you, for this man who basically lures his idols to this island, that he somehow be endearing and not, let's say, worrisome to the audience?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a sort of danger if you were to like pitch the film in a lift, whether that it would or anywhere, that it would sound like it could be like either creepy or like they could be like mercenaries and there could be like loads of money involved, and it might be just sort of quite a cold transactional thing at the heart of the movie. So it's important mainly through seeing him as a kind of amiable, admittedly bungling guy, but you don't hate him immediately for what he's doing, for paying money to get this band together, because it comes from a place of love. And then later in the film you realise just sort of how deeply in his heart this band are, and you sort of forgive him everything and want it to work out for him.
Carey, you play Nell in the film, who was in an artistic collaboration as well as a personal relationship with Tom's character. She's now married to someone else and living in the U.S. Why do you think she agrees to come back and sing again with her?
Money.
That is it. That's it. Yeah, it's
No,
cash. She
money.
needs
I
it.
think money. I think she needs the money. So it's money.
Money.
Yeah, but I think it is. But I think
Tom's
I also
gonna defend me.
No, but I think Nell misses music as well. I think
But she's it's not she's not sort of harkening back to another time in the sense. I mean, I think it really, like, if I hadn't have come up in this way, I think she would have been quite happy sort of writing poetry and making jam. But because this opportunity has come along now, there's a way to make money, and it's enjoyable. And she says in the film, oh, it's actually quite fun, sort of practicing and rehearsing, like annoying but fun to get to do it again. But I think she's so kind of moved on and accepted that she's going to be an artist in other ways and that she doesn't need to do this, but that she enjoys it. So I think it's like an adventure to her more than it is like, and a really, financially beneficial one.
There's a line between healthy nostalgia and maybe unhealthy nostalgia, and she, I would say, is on the healthier side of that.
Totally, yeah. And can take the parts of it that are additive and the rest of it's just, and that's where they run into trouble.
Tom, a large part of this movie seems to be about the relationship between the artist and the fan. Do you think fandom can improve art?
I think it's just important for artists generally. I mean, when you're making something, ultimately, there's that sort of the part of making it which is good for your soul of making things. But then there's also a reality to needing to kind of share that with other people, I guess. And I think that's where that relationship comes in, isn't it? Is how you want, like, when we watch the film, we want an audience to enjoy it, ultimately. I mean, we did it for us. We make the film with our heart in the film, and this is something that we would go and watch. So you make it for that reason. But then there's this added bonus of, like, once you do share it with the world, that you have people who enjoy it. So I guess that's the same relationship with people who play music, is that you make something that you love, and then you hope that there's a kind of connection with an audience.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think for someone like Herb particularly, he's clearly got a very difficult relationship with the idea of his fans, and he's not very happy to actually be forced to spend time with one of them, particularly one as obsessive as Charles. And I think that's sort of quite a common thing, I think, particularly in music, that the fan-artist relationship can be quite strained and quite difficult, and that actually a lot of these musicians might not be the easiest people to spend time with, and a lot of the fans might be quite obsessively difficult to be around. So I think there's a kind of, obviously, one of the things that is such a big part of the film is that relationship can be really funny and really kind of tense, just on screen, seeing the kind of fan and the artist. But because they do need each other to sort of survive in that way.
Well, there's something pleasant or very civilized about having a dinner or a drink with a fan, as opposed to, just interacting with them as they are giving many opinions online. With that in mind, if y'all could spend a weekend with any musical artist, living or dead, and have this experience where you're breaking bread and get to ask all the questions, what artist on Wallis Island?
I'd go with Buddy Holly.
I'd go with Elton John. I think you'd have the best weekend
You'd
with
have a
Elton
great
John.
time. You'd have a great time.
Don't overthink it.
Well, Mick Jagger then.
Yeah,
I'll
Jagger, gotta be.
I'll go on some long walks with Sir Mick.
Yeah.
I always thought I'd get on with Tom York. I
Yeah.
just think he's a fascinating character, like a nice guy. I think that would be a good person to spend a weekend with. Yeah.
I like the idea with Buddy Holly and be like,
Yeah, exactly.
trains. Planes are overrated, just stay on.
Oh, really? I think I wouldn't get the subject onto transport, probably. Too soon.
Well, there's only one way on the island, right? It's by boat anyway, so.
Exactly.
Rowboat.
So I think Buddy would be very relaxed.
Carey and Tom, one of the albums in the film is called The Way Back When, which is obviously very apt for this story. Why do you think music is so good at recapturing a feeling of a time or place in our lives?
I don't know, but it is. For whatever reason, there's something about that, just something that music does that other art forms, other ways of remembering things just doesn't really do. I don't know. What do you
I think it does access a part of your brain that, I think sort of almost scientifically is proven to be the last thing that you lose, and not to be too, but like, I do think there is a place for music in your brain and that is sort of separate and that you can access. I remember like playing music to my grandmother when she had Alzheimer's, and music was the thing that brought her back, and that can elicit that reaction shows that it lives in a completely different space from any kind of other art form, I think. But it can place you. I mean, there's songs that I think that, I remember being at a red light in LA and listening to this one song, and I can think like, I was 24 years old, I was at that red light and I was on the corner of Hollywood and Vine, and I remember exactly where I was when I heard that. And the feeling that I had when I was at that, traffic stop was like, I had this sense of like, gosh, this is so exciting, I'm doing this thing and I wonder what I'll do now. And I remember that whole body feeling of like having these like bright wide eyes and thinking, and if I listen to that song now, I'm right back there, and it's wild, and I don't know what that is, but that's what I think is woven into this film, is that, and into the fandom as well. Like, there are songs that mean the world to someone because they listened to them when they were losing a loved one, or when when their baby was born, and that's kind of an irreplaceable thing in someone's life. If that's the song that brought your child into the world, or, that will always hold this incredible place in your heart. And probably if you do hear that when you're in your 90s, it'll bring you back there. And, so the power of that, I think, is all packed into the film, which is what makes it so emotional.
Tom, how did you settle on the sound that the two of you have in this movie for Herb and Nell?
I think I just sort of wrote some songs, probably based on the kind of things that I've listened to and I've liked over the years. And then I guess in the lead up to the film, tried to tailor the lyrics and some of the kind of some of the sort of the music itself towards the kind of emotions and the kind of storylines that are in the film, to try and create a sense of like, they were songs written by two people at a point when they were in a certain kind of relationship, and they were young and they were excited, and they were they had an attitude towards the world that was very kind of like romantic, really. The writing process itself, I think, is very hard to know what is driving you, or how you're kind of how much you're thinking consciously about what you want it to sound like. You just kind of write the songs you write, I think. But then you can obviously change the lyrics and change maybe some of the kind of chord progressions a bit to sort of reflect what's going on in the film, I suppose. But I don't know. It's a very hard thing to describe how music gets written, I think.
On a slightly different note, Carey, I did want to ask, how excited are you for Emerald tackling Wuthering Heights?
So excited. I've known about it for ages. No, it's amazing. I mean, everything she does is brilliant, and she's one of the most exciting directors working today, and her take on everything is brilliant, so I can't wait to see it.
You obviously took a cameo in Saltburn, and there are a lot of characters. Would you like to walk along the moors if the opportunity
I
arose?
always love to walk along the moors. I'm not walking along the moors in this one, but I hope to be on every set she ever has again.
Well, Tim, maybe if a fan invites all of y'all to walk along the moors, y'all could do it for...
Absolutely. I mean, I'd like to walk along the moors in Emerald's film. Just if Emerald's watching Den of Geek. Has she shot it?
I think she's doing it right now.
Right, yeah.
Really good.
I probably won't be walking along the moors either.
Background.
I mean,
Look, we
Background,
can
yeah.
make our own moors
You know,
walking
walking on the
films.
moors.
we can all walk along the moors. I don't have 300,000 pounds.
Yeah, that's true. We'll walk along the moors independently of Emerald. Fantastic.
Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank
I
you.
really did enjoy this movie. It's a
Thank you
very,
so much.
It's a very sweet film, and congratulations.
Thank you.